Hello, hi, friends and relatives. It is me, Raymond Jordan Johnson Brown, in the flesh virtually, whatever that
In
means,
the flesh virtually. I love that.
right?
I love
I'm
that.
joined with Taylor today. We don't have Bronwyn because Bronwyn is a
No.
superstar
Yeah.
and is abroad, and the show must
Busy,
go on.
busy. Yes.
But I feel like today's episode is going to be a lot more. I don't know. I don't want to say a lot more because then Bronwyn's going to listen to it and say more what?
I mean, more of us, more
Us,
of just
exactly.
us, as
More
opposed
us.
to the trio us.
Exactly. Little less sad. And I kind of was like, I thought of an episode title or theme for this week. And because Taylor and I were back and forth and we're like, oh, let's talk about like academics and like Western academia. And then we're like, oh, let's talk about like mental health and like depression and anxiety. And then I was like really upset about something I saw on social media today. And I want to talk about that. So today's episode will be formally titled Jambalaya.
Jambalaya. I love
Because
it.
depending on where you get your jambalaya, it's all sorts of flavors, but it's usually good.
Yeah.
Unless it's like I was thinking about this yesterday in my drive. I was like, colonization is kind of like whitening, making things bland, And so
Mhm.
I was like, when you think of like white people who cook chicken and like wash it and don't put any
Yes.
seasoning.
Yeah.
So like I would say that like potentially a colonized jambalaya might not be as good. I can say
Yes.
that I think comfortably.
I,
Um,
I would agree with that.
yeah,
I
that
can agree with that.
but this is not this is a well-seasoned,
This is gonna be
yes.
a flavorful jambalaya.
Exactly. As you dive in. So, well, let's just break the ice. How are you doing, Taylor? What's going on in your world? Bring me into your solar system.
Ooh, my solar system. Actually, you know what? I came up with a statement the other day for myself.
Oh.
I figured out the statement for myself. I need chaos in my life. I do not
Mm-hmm.
need to be chaos in my life.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
find that when I end up spiraling out of control, either I've taken on too much or I've taken on
Mm-hmm.
too many of the wrong things, I
Mm-hmm.
then almost like lash out, if you will, and
Mm-hmm.
become the chaos in my life because I've then let go of the chaos that is already in my life. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's why I make like poor decisions. I it's just terrible. And then I'm now in the recovery of realizing that and trying to then pick up the chaos so that I can stop being the chaos and just be the calm, cool, collected, grounded, loving Taylor that we all love and need. And
Mm-hmm.
I can just let my life be chaos. And because I realized that like when I started to take on more things, like I got back other jobs and other jobs got lost or whatever, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
why am I taking on more? But it's actually making me more productive. And I realized that like while I need to find the balance, like I do thrive when I have a lot of things happening, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things, I don't need to be a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things. And
100%.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think, and it's like almost, it's like you're like disidentifying with the thing. Like
Yeah.
I realized last night I was kind of I always say I'm mean and like aggressive. And then I read like a meme and it was like I'm not mean and aggressive. I'm honest and assertive. And so I think like truly I am just honest and assertive. But in the world we live in, it comes off sometimes people think it is mean or that it is aggressive. But I think there's like a difference
I
and
wonder if that's the academia.
maybe it's using all those big fucking words that nobody gets.
Well, I was thinking about like because like there's this, the cliche of like the nerds or whatever, and they're bullied, they're soft, they're weak, whatever. And I
Yeah.
find that there's this, I don't know, the trend of the rebellion of like, no, like, and like, yeah, we're smart, and like, and I think that that's where the like honest, because we're still being honest and
Yeah.
assertive, but
Yeah.
it becoming defensive of like, well, no, hello,
Yeah.
I think is maybe where that comes from because I'm trying to soften that hard edge of still being like, no, 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 I'm still going to remain honest and assertive and diplomatic
Hmm.
if I need to be, but I
Yeah.
don't need to be abrasive in that
Wait,
anymore.
and like what is abrasive is going to depend on who you're like
This
engaging
is true.
with and where they're at. So it's like always kind of in flux, like the
Yeah.
universe, like it's always changing. And so I think that's like one of the craziest things, but there's something about like labels in our society that are like so ingrained. And so it becomes a part of our identity, you know, like I have to go to a space, especially because I'm so white. I have to be like, no, like I am mixed, black and indigenous. And I have to identify with these labels. And then I say those labels to then validate me to take part in a conversation. And so like
Right.
taking it, and so like when we hear words like I am a mess versus I experience messiness, or you know, things, I'm a part
Yeah.
of chaos, different things like that. Like it's like you get to like other yourself, but in a way that I think is like helpful. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't we'll see if it is, but for now it feels helpful because then really and like there's certain things that I've been picking up, and also I wish I brought it with me. There's this book, The Monkey is the Messenger by Ralph de la Rosa.
Mm.
Phenomenal. It's on mindfulness and meditation and like anyways. But what I've realized in doing all of this is that like yeah, I think it's okay to have like it stop trying to control the chaos or delete chaos or like even
Mhm.
just like that concept, but just kind of yeah, taking my other out of it in a
Yeah.
way that like is just more of like, okay, I can be grounded, I can be calm, I can be all the things that are natural to me that the world is trying to tell me that like these are your traits, these are what's going to help you thrive,
Yeah.
and still thrive in what is my preference and what my comfort zone is, which is probably also due to trauma, but whatever. um of
What's
like
your ACEs score? What are your adverse childhood early experiences score? I'm just
I have no idea.
kidding.
I would be curious to find out. But you know what I mean? Like to have a balance of both. Like I think it
Yeah,
really is about having a balance and having a harmony. And if I
yeah,
entirely attach myself to one thing, then I lose the balance, whether it's a good balance or a bad balance or a good thing
yeah.
or a bad thing. And so
No.
having to be able to have both, I think regains that balance. So far, hopefully.
And it's like I've been spending time like with this book. It's called Overcoming Anticipatory Anxiety. And I think because for me, my
Mm,
biggest anxiety is in the imagination. Like that
mm.
time we went to the Caribbean restaurant and I was like,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
for backgrounder, everyone, like I'm very, my foster mom used to say like she wouldn't watch a horror movie because she didn't want to put ideas into her head. And I was like, I
Right.
don't get that. That makes sense. I doesn't make sense. And I like certain horror movies for sure. But Bronwyn and Taylor, when they were visiting, Bronwyn told the story of how she accidentally took the barbecue sauce, which was clearly told this one is wheat oil barbecue sauce, this one is
This is
not.
not.
And Bronwyn, being Bronwyn, took the wrong one.
Chances.
and and then
Exactly.
and then told me this story. Well, we're at a Caribbean restaurant. And so then I get quiet and not really talking. And then we're like leaving the thing and we're walking around downtown Montreal. And I'm like, guys, I have to tell you, like, I don't know. I stopped eating. I don't think I finished the meal. And like, this is my favorite restaurant. Like, I love eating at this place. But sometimes the information that like goes
Yes.
into my mind becomes a part of an imagined narrative. So it's not always the case for me that when I'm experiencing anxiety that it's a real thing. Sometimes it's an imagined thing. And I think that's
Mm.
part of the beauty of why I'm a creative person and why I can like imagine really complex things and simplify them, or why I can create really beautiful stories in writing. But in this book, the anticipatory anxiety, it talks about like these three kind of minds. And it really shifted the way I can like approach it, where I see the thoughts as the thoughts. But what I used to do is I have this worry mind. So worry mind
Right.
is mind one. And worry mind is like, oh, what if the worst case scenario happens?
Right.
So in
The
this
what ifs.
example, it's like, what if this meal is drugged, for example?
Right.
The first thought, that false kind of comfort, so this is the second mind, false comfort comes in and says is like, oh no, you're at a restaurant, you think they would really want to go through that lawsuit?
Right.
The problem though is that this worry mind, mind one, talking to false comfort, mind two, that keeps the anxious cycle going no matter what.
I see.
Right, so it's like
It's
you
now a
think that
dialogue.
it's now a dialogue. So now it's become more alive. It's become something more. And false comfort is trying to continue to comfort the thoughts. But
And you're
these are
also
these
giving attention to it.
exact, it's these automatic kind of conversations that are happening on in the brain. And so they talk about the wise mind that which then steps out of that and just literally just The kind of acronym is expect, accept, and allow. Where it's like,
Mm,
it's labeling that thought like, oh, I have a thought that this shit's drugged.
yeah.
I made the choice to eat this fucking good ass fried chicken, bitch. I'm gonna eat my rice and peas and my fried chicken
Yeah.
and my
Well, it's
business.
also in hearing that, it's also like, yes, you have the worry mind of like, okay, what if this is drugged? And
Yeah,
then the false comfort almost validates that thought by giving its answer of like, well, no, they wouldn't want to do that. Right. So
exactly.
it allows that thought to be a valid thought of like, this could be something, as opposed to us still remaining in the what if.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then you've got this vicious cycle. And so one of the things that I thought was interesting in another book, because again, like I've talked about anxiety as anxiety for so long, and I'm finally feeling the first time in my life I'm better understanding what my anxiety story is. And I think that's something people miss. You get diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder, or
Yeah.
that you have anxiety, and that's it. But what it looks like is so unique to each individual. And so this other part is like these intrusive thoughts. And so it's like a toolkit, overcoming intrusive thoughts, quick little snippets of knowledge, but it's really beautiful. And they talk about like, there's just this like big, I'm going to use the analogy of like a soup
Okay.
at first, but like your mind is kind of this big bowl of soup. Like things are just kind of going in,
Yeah.
thoughts, ideas, TV shows, media, relationships, trauma comes into that. But all of
Yeah.
this thing is just kind of existing in your brain and in your mind. And so now it's going to be weird because I'm going to talk about a dam. I think it was a river. Anyway, it's like just this rushing body of water.
Yes. Yes. No,
Um,
I
and
understand.
so then there's the dam. And then what happens at various parts is that life is hard, things happen, our capacity fluctuates because we are living beings and always
Hmm.
changing on this like solar system that's not only traveling like this way, but is also traveling this
Yep.
way. And then you got Mercury in retrograde. Anyway, so in that, these holes open up and these thoughts come through. And so and so when I see the thought come into my mind, the intrusive thought, I'm like, oh, okay, there's a hole in the dam. And so all I need to do is like put this is not as good of an explanation now, because I'm like, now I need to do work to put the dirt back in. But I just liked the visualization. For me, what resonated with me was this idea that my mind is just a bowl of soup, is just a abyss of water where thoughts just pluck out at random. And sometimes the
Mhm.
hole is there and it gets bigger and bigger. And sometimes it's smaller. And that is because of different things that are maybe going on in my life and how strong the dam is, how much time I've taken to take care of myself. Like, again, it's this living, breathing thing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
The worry mind, those really, those I think, yeah, those I think knowing what your like thing is, what your anxiety story is, what your like depression story, whatever these labels that they've given, I think is like the most important way to like it's the only way that I've
Well,
been able to get any, I think, agency. Maybe I don't need to use the word.
I think to oh,
Sorry,
technical
opening this window.
difficulty. No, I think with that, really, actually, if we pick that apart more, I think what it boils down to is we need to learn or know how we experience things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what truly is our perspective, and how are we taking in information, and what is that narrative that we are taking information is, because then we'll know what to do with it, or what is, like, we can be able to tease apart what is our own thing, or what is reality, or what is necessary, or what is beneficial
Mm-hmm.
to us, or useful for us, and what is not, as opposed to just being hit with so much input and just trying to like swim through the gushing holes where you're
The
like, I
chaos.
found this thing and I found that thing. Whereas, like, if you do learn what is your anxiety story, or, when you're talking to somebody, like, how are you listening? What are you listening for?
Mm-hmm.
What's, like, knowing yourself well enough and how you're experiencing the world can
Mm-hmm.
help like better your tools to show up for yourself, or how you want to actually put your best self forward, I think is,
I'm like,
and that,
why
that can apply to everybody, whether they have anxiety or not, or depression or not. I think that that's,
being
learning
human.
your person. Yeah. Like, how to be human, how to be
Yeah.
human 101.
Right. No, I don't know why the like the Bible verse, know thyself, came to mind as you were talking. It's like, know thyself. But you
But
have
you,
to know yourself.
yeah, because like, yeah.
That's it. And I think too, it's like you bring up a important point about hearing people, but like almost bigger than that is like sensing. What are
Mhm.
your like, because we forget about the other senses, and our brain, our society is so in the brain. We're really relying on the brain and being intellectual. We're really relying on like our eyes and what we see as evidence of truth. But we're really starting to see like comparing it to like American politics, for example, like truth is no longer what is true or not. Truth is like subjective. It becomes like Trump saying that Haitians are eating cats and dogs is now truth for so many people. And that's like a scary
I
uh
think I want to rephrase that as like, not that truth is subjective, because I don't necessarily agree with that statement. I
yeah.
think the danger with like the point that you're making, I think, is that what truths we allow to accept as truths is what's
Hmm.
becoming dangerous, because like you could accept whatever Trump has said as the truth and I could not, and we could still
Hmm.
both be deemed right in our own perspective, because
Yeah.
that is, you know what I mean? I think it is what truths you are accepting,
Hmm.
despite whether they are real or valid or reality, is one way or another. But I think that that's what we need to get a handle on is
And that's the scary thing about our world. And like I had a bitch vent session. I might take this reel down because it was definitely my feelings. And I had a show last night in Quebec City and then slept 4 hours and drove 2 hours this morning. So maybe I'm tired. But I
I
just
mean,
was
fair enough.
was watching this like dancer. And to be clear, this person is not a bad person. I don't say that at all. But I was just watching this dancer who's like quite popular on Instagram, and TikTok, and has done really well for themselves and deserves to be celebrated, sure. But then they've like, as I clicked through their page, I don't follow them, but they came up in my thing. It was like a video on like, here's how to make a vision board. And it's like, I remember one day I wanted to be like famous on Instagram and now I am. And you really need to be specific with your vision. I don't know. It was just garbage, nonsense with like a couple of like quotes. And I made the joke of like Eckhart Tolle because I'm like, there's a couple of like Eckhart Tolle like words of wisdom that you clearly read like the prologue, maybe even just the quote at the first chapter. And in this tidbits of knowledge, fractured society, internet, AI, all of these
Yeah.
things, like you've got these
Yeah.
people who just read this headline and make a conclusion and then move from that place. And
Yes.
I'm like, oh, that is so dangerous. But at the same time, I'm like, it's not entirely your fault because at the same time,
Mhm.
you're also need to work 40 plus hours a week. You also might have children. You also need to buy these $20 fucking grapes, but they're just so juicy, succulent.
Yeah.
But like, why are they so expensive? Like, you have all these competing things. So like, both are true, but it's scary. I think like social media and the internet in general, because, and this is the only time I'll ever compliment academia, is that because I think that if you read a journal article, that journal article
Yes.
is
Yes.
heavily reviewed
Yes.
by experts who spent their lifetime reviewing
Yes.
this and focusing on this. And though that's like, yes,
And you
necessary.
know what the shift is?
What?
The value of credentials.
Yeah.
The work that, and again, I will echo your statement of this is the only thing that I will, not the only thing that I'll give credit to academia for,
Yeah.
is that it is exhausting
Hmm.
because they will make you jump through every goddamn fucking hoop
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah.
And what's happened now with social media is that if you can collect enough quantity of truths or
Yeah.
credit, they
Yeah.
will deem it the same as having spent 40 plus hours, having spent 40 plus people pick apart your work, having
Yeah.
spent years to build up even just your name to then write that said paper to have
Hmm.
40 plus people. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like there's so much more weight
Hmm.
behind what we had to go through to even have it be worth something for people to
Hmm.
be like, that is truthful, that is missing through social media, because what they are doing is just using those same articles that might show up on the Google that people search and think, oh
Yeah.
well, yeah, like somebody with some credentials said it enough, this is
Hmm.
truthful, boom, this is enough, boom. And
Yeah.
it's just gone, we're like, whoa. Like I saw a video of somebody who had said, oh, so a single pregnant woman can have sex, and that's not okay, but a single man who's expecting a child can have sex, and that's fine. and somebody was like, wow, these hoes are mad and slow. And everybody ripped this girl apart for being like, wow, I was just asking a question and being like, no, you know damn well that no pregnant woman should be able to have, like, what about the baby? What about this? And I was like, did anybody do any sort of Google research to realize pregnant women can have sex?
Yeah.
And the statement asked that both of those were single.
Yeah.
So, like, there's, yeah, a fair game
Everyone
for
can fuck.
both
Yeah.
people. But no one A took the time to read the statement actually correctly,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
B, because everybody had some vague knowledge of like, oh well, that's the abdomen area, of course that could be dangerous. No one fact checked, no one did anything, and everybody just said that is truthful and then ripped the girl apart. Now you've got 40 plus thousand people who are incorrect and have
Yeah.
no idea why.
Oh my God. And
All
just
and I
I thought we all took biology. Like we should know better. That the bait. I thought I but maybe that's an assumption. Let me not make an assumption.
that, and you know what, and to be fair, like, there's always going to be exceptions because, like, money
And
is
there's
a
also
thing,
another
government
there's
is a
an
thing, funding is a thing, having access to resources is a thing. And so, like,
mhm,
yes, but the people who have even had the basics
mhm,
to still, like, there's just no value in academia. Like, socially, we do not value academia
mhm,
as something as important until we need it.
mhm.
And so we have so many people who do not even find on the basics level having some kind of knowledge as something that's useful to their life. So
Yeah.
they don't spend time for it, or they don't even give it any second thought. And this is why
Mhm.
we have the social media that we have. And you're
And
like, you can have both. You don't have to be a scholar. We don't need the whole wide world to be all of that. But
no.
at least value having some sort of knowledge enough so that you can
Mhm,
have equipped knowledge to make your own decisions and actually
mhm.
make accurate decisions, and not, you know what I mean? Like,
Not quick
it's a yes,
reactions.
yeah, like, there has to be a yes and somewhere.
And I think I feel like capitalism and like colonialism didn't prepare for the internet because
No.
I think social media reveals the fractures of society, the people who don't have the voice, the way that, in like the 60s, even like my institution, like McGill, like it was all older white men who held the knowledge as the
Yeah.
experts in the field to try to build this national history of what Canada is,
Yeah.
disregarding other things, to build
Yeah.
something so that you could create a simple version of of a human being to fit into this society. But it's not working because we're not that simple. We're not.
Well, and the idea is that, like, academia is quite, like, well, not academia, knowledge is quite powerful. Really and truly,
Mhm.
that is the truth. Is knowledge is power.
It's
And people,
terrifying. Knowledge
which
is terrifying.
but it's what's terrifying is that people who know that and abuse that, which is why
Mhm.
we have the systems that we have, is
Yeah.
that people who sought out knowledge and realized how powerful knowledge could be
Mhm.
gate kept that shit
Mhm.
and abused it amongst
Mhm.
people who don't have it. And now you
Mhm.
have people who are fighting for it, but they don't have any idea how to fight for it. And so
Mhm.
really what we need is, like, a way to make knowledge accessible
Mhm.
and valuable so that
Yeah.
people have it. Everybody
And
has,
the,
because
and
knowledge is
there's
quite powerful.
and there's such a delay in like how policy and decisions are made because of the legal like loopholes. It's like this person did really amazing research 5 years ago, but before it maybe even makes it to like a policy table, it's been 5 years. It's outdated. So it doesn't
Yeah.
reflect. And in a world where everything is changing so fast, it's like we miss things. And that's, I think it's more important than ever now to like better connect to like what the hell you want to do. Like, and for me, like going into the master's in social work, it's like child welfare is really important to me because of what happened to my family and what happened to me, and ensuring that other children don't have to go through those similar experiences.
Yeah.
That is my unique story. Now, in that, do I also work in a bunch of different little things? 100%. But think of like what my story, my heart, my main purpose, or at least goal in this life is about, that ensuring that other kids don't have to go through, what my family went through. So
Yeah.
that's like so important. And I don't know if people get enough time again in like 40-hour work week and then zone out on Netflix and then like watch a bunch of TikToks before bed. You don't have time to like, what the hell is my story? What have I
Right.
went through and how am I going to help improve that for other people across
We're
many
stuck in
facets?
survival mode. Our
Yeah.
society has made us that we all have dreams. We all, like, if you gave every single person the resource that they need and time to
Mhm,
fester what was actually important to them, we would have so much. People would be able to do so much, but we
mhm,
have put ourselves into this box of like survival mode, and we're all
mhm,
like on survival mode, and there's nothing left over for ourselves, let alone
mhm.
for anybody else. And like the apathy comes in, the what is it, oh my, I can't even find the word, the concept of just like, ah, somebody else will do it, like sinking into the herd mentality.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I wonder what you think about like AI, because like, for me, I actually really am hopeful.
Mm,
I admit that there's fear in the transitionary period because I think every transition of any sort of technology that came
yeah.
in, we do lose jobs. For example, there are a wealth of customer service folks who like this is their bread and butter. They love customer service. This is their work, their world. And now we see like self checkouts everywhere. And like, what was that? Where was I? Somewhere in a store. I was at Uniqlo, and then it was like there was no help with it. I just put my clothes in a basket, and then like did it all myself. So like when things become automated, I get it's scary, and it means that you have to shift and change. So I'm conscious of that. I also realize we're in a really toxic world, and so I also think that like it could be leveraged in negative ways. But is there a world where some of the things that humans do that we don't need to do can now give us time to actually get back to like what it means to feel pleasure, what it means to enjoy life again? Like,
I
what does
think
that look
I
like?
Yeah, I have a love hate. I have a love hate because I'm a person, I can't stand people. Don't get me wrong. I love humans. I love you all. I don't give a fuck about y'all. I hate people. So I love self-checkout. I love not having to be able to check out people. However, in moments, I like being able to choose because like I have was so distraught when I saw a self checkout at 7-Eleven. I hate that. I love
Oh,
talking to the 7-Eleven people. I don't know what it is about 7-Eleven across the globe, like
yeah.
literally, even in the States, like wherever I go, I actually enjoy talking to those people. I find that they're so funny. I like it's a good interaction almost every time.
Hmm.
But you asked me to do like go through grocery shopping and go through a cashier. Absolutely not. I will do
No.
self checkout even if I have 20 million items. So
Yeah.
I like being able to have the choice to choose. And
Yeah.
so I think that AI and things like that can be a tool. I agree with what you're saying
Hmm.
because I think it does give us the opportunity to make a choice of whether I want to not have to do this task and let an
Hmm.
automated thing do it for me, or
Hmm.
decide to do the task because
Hmm.
it brings me pleasure and that's what I want to do. So I
Hmm.
hope that's my hope for AI, is that it can remain as a tool to give people the power of choice.
Hmm.
But I right now, what I have found as a trend, and maybe I could be way off, is that some
Hmm.
of the greatest things that we have had in our lives is also what has brought some of the worst things that we've had. And I feel
Hmm.
like AI will be one of them, and I hope
Yeah.
that we survive it because I don't think we will.
And sometimes I honestly, when I look and I look, I've had to in the last couple of weeks relearn to love the world again because I think I spent so much time finding the like ways we got to this place and seeing so many flaws that I'm like, oh, I hate people generally. I
Yeah,
have a lot more. I grew up trusting everybody. I was
yep,
trusting I remember when
literally
we were
me.
young, we used to go to the candy lady's house. So we would go to this lady's house, knock on her door, and she would just give us candy. That was the thing. Like, but if you told me to do that today, I'd be like, hell no. Are
Absolutely not.
you mad? Like, no,
Yeah.
never. And so I think I've lost trust in a lot of people, but now I'm in this place. I'm like, I have to find the potential in the people again, or else I don't know if I can be effective. And
Yeah.
that within reason, like obviously, like there was an experience in my life where I had to like put boundaries up with a person who I really care about because of some of their choices. And I think like I can care about that person and still have my boundary up of how I relate to them. I think that's important, but you have to kind of like love thy neighbor, love the enemy, or whatever. I don't know what the phrase is.
Yeah, people love talking to me. I don't know what it is, especially when I'm on transit, and like I can't stand it.
Boys.
I really hate it. I really do. However, as much, and I have to just make sure that I am able to keep myself safe at all times. So that is just the work that I have to do, because
Mm-hmm.
what I will say is that I've been actually having some really lovely conversations every now and then from
Mm-hmm.
those encounters, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so if I put this wall up of God, don't talk to me. I don't like for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
I then lose out on those opportunities because
Mm-hmm.
people can surprise you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's been some really lovely ladies that I've met and some really nice, kind gentlemen that I've met from just have been
Just
interrupted.
no non-binary people though.
No,
Just
actually, most I haven't been encountered. At least, actually, let me rephrase. I haven't known to be encountered by a non-binary. I mean, I have non-binary in my lives as my friends, so
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not talking about them. I mean strangers.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have not been so far. And I also will say that pretty confidently because most young, like most, I wouldn't say young as like my young, I mean like young in terms of like less
Yeah.
than 50.
Yeah.
I haven't had most of that demographic approach me. I get a
Yeah.
lot of elderly
Older.
people
Yeah. Yeah.
approach me. And so they're usually pretty set, at least what
Yeah.
again, like to my known. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
definitely, you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know what it is about them elderly. They love talking to me, and sometimes it's a bit too much or a bit too inappropriate, not in a like inappropriate way, but just more of
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know if they're aware of how many boundaries they are crossing, just like social, like things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I've also had some really, really sweet people, so I can't be mad. You know what I mean? Like I kind of just have to take it and keep myself safe and fingers crossed, hope for the best.
Well, did you ever see, do you remember when you're like in high school, did you ever do that like senior program or elementary school where you like visit a senior in a nursing home? Oh, it was my favorite. I remember I like learned how to woodwork. Couldn't tell you what it is now, but I just remember like going every week to go visit like a senior and get to know him and like I just loved like spending time, and it was such a joyous time with elders. And I think there's a project I'm working on right now, supporting some intergenerational knowledge amongst queer folks. And I'm like,
Mm.
capitalism really fucked over our respect and our families for generational knowledge, right? Like we don't, in the push for like a nuclear family and to move out when you're 18 and like create your own family, like it just distorted and fucked up so many families and relationships. And then again, being so busy, you don't have a lot of time to
Well, I
engage.
think
And
we entered a world where a spotlight really got shone on like
Mhm,
our reality. And so like
yeah.
it really, there's some faults for some older generations and there's some faults for the way things used to be that, shaped this future and,
Hmm.
accountability needs to be taken place. But there's also a lot of generational wealth that has also been lost through that
Hmm.
because relationships became a real focus. And
Hmm.
whether accurately breaking relationships, i.e., you have, parents that aren't good parents,
Hmm.
and needing to cut those ties and needing to break those bonds and needing to remove yourself from that.
Hmm.
But then also the other side of people following trend and following the like, yeah, I need to bust the walls and things like that because they have nothing to offer me. And like it's a thing to move out at 18 and it's a thing to
Hmm.
stand on your own, which is still true,
Yeah.
but they're doing it not for themselves, but rather to chase a dream or chase what ifs. And we've
Hmm.
now lost all of what could have helped them get there,
Hmm.
because they've now just disregarded the generation past
Hmm.
while this person needed to disregard and this person didn't. Both have made the decision to regard, you know what I mean? Like I think that
Hmm.
that's a lot that has happened when we focus on relationships and safety and accurately, but also maybe not so accurately. And now we're like, what has happened? And you're like, well, you walked out without
Yeah.
realizing what you walked out on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, again, there's so many relationship fractures, and they come from a violent foundation across generations. Whether you were the oppressed or the oppressor, I think both are displaced. I think both are violent, in some version of history, in some part of their
Yeah.
DNA. And violence is violence is violence, and fractures are fractures are fractures. I think that's something that's universal for us. And so how do you then step into that place of healing, I think is something that we like shy away from. And there's
Yeah.
the book Conflict is Not Abuse. If you are listening,
Ooh,
get that
that's a
fucking
statement.
book.
That's a
Oh,
good one.
it's such a good read. And just reframing, but it's like, I can't tell you the amount of times people are like, oh, if shit gets crazy, you better leave him. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, there's this fracture and now you must go and never
Yes.
return. And this is
Yes.
a red flag. Even that kind of ideology of like green and red flags. Like, I'm like, I think that like maybe it should be more like green and red plants where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, both can
Yes.
grow into
Yeah.
something healthy, like
Yeah.
red and green peppers. If anyone's listening to
Yeah.
this, we're copywriting that, don't take it. But like, it's like okay, that can be great, like people can have red flags, but that doesn't mean that person again is this thing and they're always that thing. If people are always changing, I'm like, I'm looking
Yeah.
out my window and staring at my
It's
plants,
like
but I'm like,
seeds, at seeds, because so
yeah,
maybe those are seeds that you just don't need to water. So the plant
yeah.
is the person, and the traits are the seeds. And so you have good seeds and not so useful seeds, and we just need to not water those not so useful seeds
Why did you not say bad?
because I think good and bad is not really relevant.
I thought you were gonna say subjective.
No, I think whether something is good or bad or both, I think is not really important. I think it's the situation that it's in and if
Yeah,
it's useful or not useful,
yeah, yeah.
you know. I
No.
think everybody has all of those traits and all of those capabilities. And so I think that really it's just a matter of making sure you use the ones that are going to actually benefit your life the way you want it to and not detrimental to yourself and those around you.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's yeah, that's it's so interesting when you like when you connect into stories of people who hurt. It's like that phrase, hurt people, you know? It's like when you look at that wound, you're like, oh my God, you're in survival too. And
Yeah.
even when I look at like how this pursuit of this dream, this ideal, this capitalism really thrives, it's like this hopeful future that we work hard for to get this something. But it also comes from like collective grief, I would imagine, all around like experiencing world wars, things like,
Yeah.
like generations before. There's so many significant life events, and for some many, both collectively and individually. And so it's why it's all the more reason why you have to not connect into just what you're seeing when you're watching TikTok, social media, or having a conversation, but like literally checking in with like, how do I feel? Do I feel points of tension?
Yeah.
Touch, what am I, there's these five beautiful senses that we have that I think are engaged so infrequently, and then we wonder why we're having anxiety, because there's this disconnect between our mind and our body's physical sensations and
Mm-hmm.
these emotions that we experience, and we're like scared of them. And I think maybe that's a part of also capitalism, and in a way is like to disconnect you from those emotions so that you can become easier to fit into a box and easier
Yeah.
to be structured. And so that's, I mean, that's why I'm a big somatics. I'm finishing my somatic certification now, so I can be a integrative somatic practitioner. And then when I do my master's in social work, we'll bring it all together after like this very societal undergrad. We're just gonna fuck the club up, as Nicki Minaj would say.
I mean, maybe I'll come. My plan is to work on my master's in 2 years, and
Mm,
I have this whole concept of like, how do we bring our brains that we have for our daily lives, our human brains, and bring it into dance as opposed to like
mm,
trying to think as it is a separate thing, a separate brainwave. So like, how does the body function? How does the body actually is supposed to move our ranges of emotions and all that stuff,
mm,
and bring it into something as artistic and creative as dance and things like that, because I find that we focus on dance in such a visual way,
mhm,
copy see copy do, without any
mhm.
understanding of actually how this operates or how this
Yeah,
operates.
yeah.
And for those who are listening, I put my hand on my head and my hand on my body, on my chest.
Yeah.
um, and we don't, it's like an afterthought. It's until like we can't do what we're doing anymore, and then we kind of go
Mhm,
back to being like, oh, what are these supposed to do? So like, how
mhm,
can we bring that with us from the get-go of like, well, this is what we're operating with 24/7. You don't get to
mhm,
just like pretend you get a new body or a new brain when
Mhm.
you step into something new just for shits and giggles. Like, you're still working with the same shit. So like, how do
Yep.
we actually efficiently work with the shit that we've
Yeah.
got going on, you know?
And I'm really excited to see that work come to life for you, because I think that's so important to work with where we're at and like get away. Like, I think one of the biggest flaws with anxiety or depression or any ailment is this idea of like complete relief or a cure. Because I think, again, oh God, I'm gonna say, if you're watching this and you're a drinker, shoot every time I say capitalism today, but don't actually. But
Yeah.
if you don't drink like me, have a sip of coffee every time. But if you're anxious, maybe don't. Depends
Or
on.
juice or whatever is
But
your drink of choice.
yeah,
Or
whatever is your
ginger
beverage.
shots. Do a ginger shot for
Ginger
those
shot.
every time we say
But
academia and capitalism.
yeah, but I think like, gosh, I lost my point entirely now in the excitement of that. See, it's the idea that capitalism loves the idea of your body is beneficial to society when it's working. And so when you become a part of this like surplus population, the additional people who are reliant on programs, there's this idea of like getting to a cure, getting to a place, not so that you can just be back to balance or
Mm,
homeostasis, if you want to say that. It's like so you can get back to work.
yeah.
It's like, I'm sick. Why am I upset that I'm sick? Oh, because I need to get things done. I got to get to work. And so again, coming back to this idea of like contentment with what is in the living moment and recognizing this ever evolving, changing nature that is just our world. And back to chaos, like, remember when we went in Montreal to that like star place over there? Like, it was like the first thing that happened was like a chaotic moment of cells or something. And it's like, so like the
Oh,
very
yes.
first of moment of life and existence
Yes.
as we know it, which again has its limitations, was chaotic. So we all experience the chaos. Chaos is it, but it's not. We are not chaos,
We are not chaos.
unless you ask my ex. But I'm not chaos, but I experience chaos in the same way that
Yes.
everyone experiences. And the more conscious we are of the chaos that we experience, I think, and the more aware we are of our five senses in how we experience that chaos, the better able we are going to, I think, maintain that homeostasis, that innate wise mind
Yeah.
balance within that is an inherent piece of every single fucking
Yeah.
person.
Well, and it's funny because the book that I was talking about earlier, The Monkey is a Messenger, it talks about this idea of that the the constant, the monkey is the messenger, the rapid wheel is trying to tell you something, and that this idea of meditation is based on mindfulness, that like it's not the it's not going to be the prescription to solve all your issues. It's not going to be the like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming back to like, I'm happy 24/7, I've done it,
Yay.
yay. You're still going to be angry, you're going to still experience hurt, you're still going to, experience joy and sadness and all of these things, and they're going to come and go as is. But it's to be with at one with that, to be more
Mm-hmm.
mindful of that. Like, it's not a fix, it's
Mm-hmm.
a practice, it's a way of life, it's a way of being at home with yourself. I think there's a quote,
Mm-hmm.
I might even misquote it, but it says like, the mind is the home of the body. And so
Mm-hmm.
like, there needs to, like there is no one like, I'm gonna do this and now all my problems are fixed, I'm so happy
Mm-hmm.
7, yay. You're like, that's not real. You're still,
To
everything's
lie.
gonna come, the world is still what it is. But
Yeah.
how do we live in the world? Let's focus
Yes.
on that.
How do we hold space for them?
Yeah.
Well, in concluding, I hope you've enjoyed this Taylor and
Jambalaya, because what
Raymond.
the fuck.
There's lots of
Yeah.
nuggets of wisdom and
Good luck for anybody watching or listening or both. Maybe you might need to do both to pick up anything. And if you do, let us know. Let us know in our comment section what you've picked up from this little jambalaya soup that we've got going on.
and next time we'll be joined with our lovely I almost said Taylor with Braun. We're more Sagittarius chaos. Stay well, stay glorious, stay messy, and we'll see you next time.